Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon. This is Marcus, once again, formerly of Third Coast Mobile Notary. Just want to answer and address a couple of questions for you guys in all things notary. Now, if you recall in our previous video, we dealt with the two questions, one in particular. So what is a notary? And then the conjoining question, so how could it or why would it be a viable side hustle? And so we addressed that question front and center here on this particular channel video. And not only that, but we expounded upon how one could potentially scale up in the notary world. And so I want to deal with that now with the second part to that particular video. So what is a remote online notary, and how could it too be a viable resource as far as side hustling is concerned? I'm definitely honored and privileged you guys are with me. Appreciate the love, appreciate the feedback. Continue to like, continue to share, continue to subscribe, and tell everyone, obviously, if you have the capability of doing so. So how can I now? I've obtained my notary license, Marcus. I saw your video. It was amazing. I'm ecstatic. But I was looking at the numbers, and as far as in a full-time capacity to potentially even transfer from working a traditional 9-to-5 to operating the capacity of a full-time notary, looking at the numbers, Marcus, I don't see how that adds up. Is there any possible way to scale up? Yes, there is. So one can go from becoming a notary public now to graduating and becoming a remote online notary, where the obvious is true. What is the obvious? Can this be done online? Yes, it can. It's totally and 100% done online. And we'll go even further with some additional steps as far as goodies and nuggets for you guys to be able to take with you. That being said, so what is a remote online notary? Great question. And again, I'm honored that you guys have asked. Like a notary, a remote online notary is a public official commissioned by the state by which they receive their credentials to be able to act as an impartial party. In other words, a neutral, no known interest individual. The lone exception is the obvious for a remote online notary. It is totally and utterly being notarized online. However, the equivalent is true. Everything that you're doing as an in-person notary, you're also doing as a remote online notary. So now let's talk about some of the duties that come with being a remote online notary. Well, in particular, right off the cuff, you're confirming signer's identity. Very, 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 very important. I cannot stress that again. Let me say it again. Very, 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 very important. Not only that, you have to have a working knowledge of the documents by which you'll be notarizing. And finally, the additional obvious. You want to ensure that they have a willingness to sign those particular documents electronically, of course, which again is all totally and 100% done online. I cannot stress that enough. And like a notary also, a remote online notary, FYI guys, you may be looking to the right or looking to the left. Check it out my notes just to make sure we're on par. Like a traditional notary public, a remote online notary, in essence, they perform acknowledgments as part of their duties. They also administer oaths and affirmations as well. However, different from a traditional notary public, the remote online notary has the ability to notarize documents regardless of where they originated from. So in other words, I'm in the great state of Texas. I'm not going to talk about my Cowboys. We'll leave it at that. However, though I have my credentials in Texas, I can also notarize documents in the other 45, 46 states which allow me to be able to operate as a remote online notary. Which leads me to my next point. There are only, and I do mean there are only 5 states that currently do not allow presently at the time of this recording for remote online notarizations to take place. Those are the following. The first, I have a couple tears that I'm shedding on the inside. California, I don't know why. Delaware, Washington, D.C., Georgia, Mississippi, and South Carolina. Now keep in mind, each state has different requirements from one to be able to obtain the remote online notarization credential. However, the requirements or steps are usually minimum at best. Now, I would advise you to check with your local Secretary of State website for more exact details. Now, Marcus, the good stuff. So Why would being a remote online notary be an excellent, maybe even potentially elite side hustle? Again, I'm honored and elated that you asked. Did I mention right off the cuff, it's completely and 100% online. Unlike the traditional notary, there's no travel involved at all whatsoever unless you're just hungry and want to get you something to eat because you don't feel like cooking. Other than that, you stay in the comforts of your home, your office. If you can find a quiet spot at the beach where there's no seagulls, the beach, the library, like I'm currently at now, it's totally up to you. Obviously, there's some additional capabilities that one has to accumulate. Marcus, what in the world are you talking about? One has to have sufficient internet space, an additional monitor, unfortunately, tier. You cannot perform remote online notarizations on your Apple or iPhone, or rather your iPhone or your Android. It has to be a laptop, and also an iPad could be used as an additional monitor. Now, let me keep in mind, the most important thing outside of everything else as far as not only becoming a notary, but also remote online notary is you are your own boss. It sounds so wonderful. I'm going to say it again. It's not only delicious, but it's nutritious all at the same time. You are your own boss. You work as little or as much as you possibly choose. It is totally up to you. Once you're approved and you're ready to go, and there will indeed be some additional videos about various platforms for one to be able to register with in order to be able to operate as a remote online notary, because that is a mandate. But guys, once you're good to go, you are good to go. Now, keep in mind some additional sweeteners for you, why this would be a viable side hustle. Like the traditional notary public, the remote online notary also is eligible for the same tax incentives and breaks as well. Keep in mind, focus people, I am not a CPA. I am not your local CPA. I'm not even trying to impersonate a fraud as far as a taxidermist is concerned. Definitely consult with your local CPA. However, all the information I'm provided is totally Googleable, if that makes any sense at all. Some additional benefits as we get ready to wrap up this video. There's a low barrier of entry. In other words, low startup costs and completely and utterly pandemic proof. Also allows the ability for one to be able to scale up even more and not only work in the capacity of a remote online notary, but also do what they call loan closings as a notary signing agent. Just a little segue to our next video, as a notary signing agent, to where you get paid even more as a remote online notary. Lastly, it's extremely marketable. It's online. Who's not online? So in other words, who won't have dibs and access to your marketable information? So what have we covered yet again, guys? And again, I definitely appreciate your patience. Things we covered: what in the world is a remote online notary? We covered it. Very similar to the traditional notary public. The only exception, the most important exception, is completely online. And also we added the additional answer to the question, so why is it an awesome side hustle? Now, like my last video, guys and gals, my only question to you is, why in the world aren't you a remote online notary? Once again, this is Marcus, guys, formerly of Third Coast Mobile Notary. If you have the capability, please don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. Tell your mom, tell your pa, tell everyone you know. More notary information coming soon. Stay blessed, guys.